There are stories that disappear with time, and then there are stories that refuse to die. This is one of them. It began with the unexplained death of a 17-year-old schoolboy. But what seemed like an ordinary post-mortem soon uncovered a mysterious blue stone hidden inside his body. From that moment on, everyone who came into contact with it began hearing impossible voices, witnessing terrifying apparitions, and living through nightmares that no science could explain. Some believed it was cursed, others believed it was protecting something far more dangerous. But by the time the truth finally surfaced, it was already too late. Halloween has always been a season filled with stories. Some are invented to entertain, some are exaggerated over time. But every now and then, a story emerges that is so detailed, so consistent, and so deeply unsettling that even the people involved struggle to explain what truly happened. This is one of those stories. Unlike ordinary horror tales, this one wasn't created by a single storyteller. It was pieced together from the testimonies of several people whose lives became connected by one terrifying incident. Different professions, different backgrounds, different perspectives, yet every one of them described the same impossible chain of events. It all began with a doctor who had carried an unbearable secret for years. Although he had spent his entire career treating patients and witnessing life and death on a daily basis, there was one incident that never allowed him to sleep peacefully. No matter how much time passed, the memories remained vivid. Every face, every sound, every impossible moment stayed frozen inside his mind. For years, he wanted to tell someone, but finding the right person wasn't easy. Then one evening, fate finally gave him the opportunity. During a wedding ceremony, he unexpectedly met someone he trusted. After exchanging greetings and talking about old memories, the doctor quietly said, "There is something I've wanted to tell for years." His expression suddenly became serious. "I've listened to countless horror stories, but what happened to me was real. I don't expect everyone to believe it, but I know what I saw." Those words alone were enough to spark curiosity. After the ceremony ended, the two of them walked to a quiet roadside tea stall. The city was slowly disappearing into darkness. The evening breeze carried the smell of rain, while distant traffic echoed through the empty streets. They ordered 2 cups of tea. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The doctor simply stared into his cup, gathering the courage to relive a memory he had tried to forget for years. Finally, he took a deep breath. Everything started on June 26th, 2013. That afternoon looked completely ordinary. The sun hung high above the city. People hurried home after work. School had just ended. The streets were crowded with students wearing uniforms, office workers rushing toward buses, street vendors calling customers, and endless traffic moving through the busy roads. Nothing seemed unusual, until a scream broke the routine noise of the afternoon. People began gathering in the middle of the road. Within seconds, a large crowd had formed. Everyone was looking toward the same place. Lying motionless on the pavement was a teenage boy. He couldn't have been older than 17. He was still wearing his neatly pressed school uniform. His school shoes were still on his feet. His backpack was nowhere to be found. At first, everyone believed he had simply fainted because of the unbearable summer heat. Several bystanders rushed forward. One person sprinkled water on his face. Another tried calling out to him. There was no response. A man carefully lifted the boy's wrist. No pulse. Someone else checked his neck. Nothing. Another person leaned closer, trying to hear even the faintest breath. There was only silence. The realization spread through the crowd like ice. The boy wasn't unconscious. He was already dead. An uneasy silence replaced the panic. No one knew his name. No one knew where he had come from. Most importantly, No one knew how a perfectly healthy-looking teenager had suddenly died in the middle of a public road without a single visible injury. Someone immediately called the police. Within minutes, officers arrived and secured the scene. They questioned witnesses. Nobody had seen the exact moment of his collapse. Some claimed he had been walking normally only moments earlier. Others insisted he had simply fallen without making a sound. The police searched every pocket of his uniform. They hoped to find a student ID, a mobile phone, anything that could identify him. Instead, they found almost nothing. No wallet, no identification card, no school bag, nothing that explained who he was or why he had been there. The mystery had already begun. Following standard procedure, photographs were taken, evidence was collected, the body was carefully placed inside an ambulance and transported to the hospital for a post-mortem examination. To everyone present, it appeared to be another unexplained death. No one imagined that the real horror had not happened on the street. It was waiting. Inside the hospital morgue. The hospital received cases like this almost every day. Accidents, natural deaths, unidentified bodies. For the doctors and hospital staff, death had become part of their routine. Emotions were often pushed aside because their work demanded professionalism above everything else. The teenage boy's body was transferred to the morgue without attracting much attention. Inside, the cold air carried the familiar smell of disinfectant mixed with chemicals. Bright fluorescent lights reflected off stainless steel tables. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the ventilation system. The doctor assigned to supervise the post-mortem reviewed the paperwork one last time before leaving briefly to complete a few formalities. Meanwhile, the morgue attendant prepared everything for the examination. This wasn't his first autopsy. In fact, he had participated in well over 200. Bodies no longer frightened him. He believed there was nothing left in the human body that could surprise him. That belief was about to be shattered. Wearing his gloves, he carefully uncovered the teenager's body. The boy's face looked unusually peaceful. There were no signs of panic, no visible injuries, no deep cuts, no broken bones, nothing suggested a violent struggle. It almost looked as if the teenager had simply fallen asleep. The attendant picked up his scalpel and began the procedure with practiced precision. Everything progressed normally, until the blade reached the right side of the boy's neck. Clink. A metallic sound echoed through the room. The attendant immediately stopped. His eyebrows narrowed. That wasn't bone. It wasn't cartilage either. Something solid was buried beneath the flesh. Curiosity replaced routine. He carefully widened the incision. Still unable to identify the object, he rinsed the area with clean water. Slowly. Very slowly. A small object began to emerge. The attendant leaned closer. His heartbeat slowed. Resting inside the tissue was a perfectly smooth stone, not larger than the tip of a thumb. Yet unlike any stone he had ever seen, it shimmered with an unnatural deep blue color. Even under the harsh hospital lights, it reflected a strange glow. For several seconds, he simply stared. How could something like this be inside a human body? Medical science offered no explanation. There was no surgical scar suggesting someone had implanted it. There was no medical record mentioning anything unusual. The stone simply existed. His first instinct was to call the supervising doctor. But another thought quickly entered his mind. What if this stone was valuable? Gemstones could sell for a fortune. Maybe this was sapphire. Maybe something even rarer. His financial situation had been difficult for months. Bills kept piling up. Business investments had failed. Money had become a constant source of stress. The more he looked at the blue stone, the harder it became to ignore temptation. No one knows it's here, he whispered to himself. If I keep it, who will ever find out? After looking toward the empty doorway to make sure nobody was watching, he quietly slipped the blue stone into his pocket. The instant his fingers released it, the temperature inside the morgue seemed to change. A freezing chill swept across the room. The fluorescent lights flickered once. Then, everything became unnaturally still. The attendant frowned. Moments earlier, he could hear the ventilation system. Now, absolute silence. Even the air itself felt heavy. Then, without warning, a whisper floated through the room, soft, broken, almost pleading. "Give it back." The attendant froze. His eyes searched every corner of the morgue. Nobody. Only rows of silent bodies covered with white sheets. His throat tightened. He forced himself to laugh. "You're imagining things. You're tired." He picked up the scalpel again. The blade had barely touched the body. When the voice returned, this time much closer. "Please, return it." The attendant's breathing became uneven. He spun around. Still no one. No footsteps, no movement, only silence. He shook his head violently. Hallucinations, stress, nothing more. He continued working, but the whispers refused to stop. Instead, they multiplied. One voice became several. They no longer came from one direction. Some whispered beside his left ear. Others breathed behind his right shoulder. Then another seemed to come from directly behind him. "Give it back. Please. Don't take it away. Return the stone." The voices overlapped until they surrounded him completely. His hands began shaking uncontrollably. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead despite the freezing room. His heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear himself think, for the first time in his entire career. The morgue frightened him. Still, greed proved stronger than fear. Clenching his jaw, he forced himself to finish the autopsy as quickly as possible. He stitched the incision closed, cleaned the body, completed the paperwork, and without telling a single person about the mysterious blue stone, he left the morgue. He believed the nightmare was over. He couldn't have been more wrong, because that same evening, the teenage boy's body was placed inside an ambulance for its final journey home. And someone else was about to hear the very same voice. Night had completely fallen by the time the paperwork was finished. The hospital corridors, once crowded with doctors, patients, and visitors, had become eerily quiet. The teenage boy's body was carefully placed inside an ambulance, wrapped in a white sheet, ready to be taken back to his hometown. For the young ambulance driver, this wasn't just another assignment. It was his very first day behind the wheel of an ambulance. Until now, he had only driven passenger vehicles. Carrying a dead body through isolated highways at night was something entirely new. He checked the mirrors, adjusted his seat, took a deep breath, and started the engine. Beside him sat an experienced hospital helper who had transported dozens of bodies before. Seeing the driver's nervous expression, he smiled reassuringly. "Relax," he said. "It's just another journey." The driver nodded, although something inside him refused to settle. The ambulance slowly left the hospital compound and entered the highway. Their destination was nearly 90 minutes away. As the city lights disappeared behind them, the road became increasingly deserted. On both sides stretched endless fields. Tall trees lined the highway like silent guardians. The only source of light came from the ambulance headlights cutting through the darkness ahead. Inside the vehicle, nothing could be heard except the steady rhythm of the engine. For several minutes, everything remained perfectly normal. Then, the driver heard it. At first, it sounded like wind slipping through a half-open window, a faint whisper, barely audible. He ignored it. Another minute passed. The whisper returned. This time, it was clearer. "Please, don't stop the ambulance." The driver's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. He glanced toward the helper. "Did you say something?" The helper looked confused. "No. I thought I heard a voice." The helper smiled. "First night driving?" The driver nodded. "That's all it is." "Your mind is playing tricks?" Trying to convince himself, the driver focused on the empty road ahead. But the whisper came again, closer, more desperate. "Whatever happens, do not stop. Please, keep driving." This time, the words were unmistakable. The driver swallowed nervously. He looked in the rearview mirror. The white-covered body remained perfectly still. Nothing else. He forced himself to continue. Several kilometers passed. Then, something appeared in the distance. Two figures standing directly beside the road. As the ambulance approached, the headlights illuminated them more clearly. A middle-aged man and a young woman dressed in a beautiful dark blue sari. Both were desperately waving their hands. The driver instinctively eased his foot off the accelerator. "They need help," he said. Before the helper could answer, the whisper exploded inside the driver's ears, louder than ever before. "Don't stop! Keep driving! Please, don't stop!" The driver's entire body stiffened. His heartbeat thundered inside his chest. The helper frowned. "What's wrong? Can't you hear that?" "Hear what?" "The voice." The helper looked around. There is no voice. There are only two people asking for help. By now, the ambulance had slowed almost to a stop. The middle-aged man ran toward the driver's window. His face looked exhausted. His clothes were dusty. His breathing was heavy. "Brother," he pleaded, "please help us. My mother has died. We've been waiting for a vehicle for hours. Please let us ride. We'll get off as soon as we reach the next town." The driver hesitated. "There isn't much space. The back is occupied." The man nodded quickly. "I know. I saw. But there's enough room beside the stretcher. My mother won't cause any trouble." The driver exchanged a nervous glance with the helper. The helper quietly whispered, "We shouldn't stop here. This road has a bad reputation after dark." Before the driver could answer, the mysterious voice screamed once again, not as a whisper, as a desperate warning. "Don't let her inside. Take them away, or drive. Please, drive." Every instinct told him to press the accelerator, to leave immediately. But another part of him couldn't abandon two helpless people on an empty road in the middle of the night. Compassion defeated fear. With a sigh, he unlocked the rear doors. The helper stepped out reluctantly. The middle-aged man thanked them repeatedly. The young woman never spoke. She simply climbed into the back of the ambulance. As she passed beneath the interior light, the driver noticed something strange. She was incredibly pale, not sick, not tired, just unnaturally pale. Her dark blue sari looked spotless despite standing for hours on a muddy roadside. Her eyes remained fixed on the covered body lying on the stretcher. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. She didn't even acknowledge anyone. The helper felt a sudden chill crawl across his back for reasons he couldn't explain. He wanted to tell her to get out. Instead, he silently closed the rear doors. The ambulance began moving once again. For a few moments, everything was quiet. The mysterious whisper had vanished. The driver actually felt relieved. Perhaps he really had imagined everything. Perhaps stress had been responsible all along. Then, a deafening bang. Something slammed violently against the rear wall of the ambulance. The entire vehicle lurched sideways. Another crash, then another. Metal clanged. The stretcher rattled violently. It sounded as though two people were fighting inside the back compartment. The helper immediately turned around. "What on earth?" The driver gripped the steering wheel tightly. Neither of them had touched the brakes, yet the ambulance was shaking as if something enormous was throwing itself against the walls. Then, the unseen voice returned. But now, it was furious. "Who did you bring inside? Take her out! Take her out! Now!" The driver's face turned completely pale, because this time, he knew with absolute certainty the voice wasn't coming from outside the ambulance. It was coming from behind them. The driver's hands tightened around the steering wheel. His knuckles turned white. The helper instinctively grabbed the dashboard as another violent impact echoed from the rear compartment. Bang! The entire ambulance shook. It felt as though someone had been thrown against the metal walls with incredible force. The stretcher rattled, medical equipment slid across the floor. The driver could barely keep the vehicle on the road. Then came another sound. Not a crash, not a scream. Two voices. They were arguing. One sounded desperate, the other sounded furious. The words were impossible to understand, but the hatred between them was unmistakable. The helper slowly turned toward the rear window, separating the cabin from the patient compartment. Nothing. He couldn't see anyone moving. Yet the noise continued, almost as if invisible people were fighting over something hidden beside the dead boy. Suddenly, the mysterious voice spoke again, only this time it wasn't whispering. It roared. "Who did you allow inside? She doesn't belong here." "Take her out before it's too late." The driver felt every hair on his body stand on end. His breathing became fast and shallow. He wanted to keep driving. He truly did. But the chaos behind him became unbearable. The helper shouted, "Brother, stop the ambulance!" Without thinking any further, the driver slammed on the brakes. The ambulance screeched to a halt in the middle of the deserted highway. For one terrifying second, absolute silence. The crashes stopped. The whispers disappeared. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. The driver and the helper looked at each other. Neither of them wanted to open the rear doors. Finally, gathering every bit of courage he had left, the helper stepped outside. His legs felt unusually heavy. Each step toward the back of the ambulance felt longer than the last. His trembling hand reached the handle. He slowly pulled it open. The rear doors swung apart. Everything inside looked perfectly normal. The teenage boy's body remained exactly where it had been placed. The white burial cloth hadn't moved. Nothing appeared broken, and sitting quietly beside the stretcher was the young woman in the dark blue sari. She calmly looked toward the helper as if nothing unusual had happened. There wasn't the slightest sign that a violent struggle had taken place only moments earlier. The helper couldn't believe his eyes. Before he could speak, the woman slowly stood up. She stared directly at the driver. Her expression suddenly changed. The sadness on her face disappeared. It was replaced by anger. Cold, silent, unnatural anger. "Why did you stop?" Her voice was calm, too calm. The driver hesitated before answering. "I thought something happened inside." The woman's eyes narrowed. "My mother has just died." "How could you stop the vehicle? Drive." There was something strange about the way she spoke. No emotion, no grief, only a command. The driver apologized without even realizing why. He closed the doors, returned to his seat, and started driving again. For several minutes, no one spoke. The helper avoided looking toward the rear compartment. The driver kept his eyes fixed on the road. Then, without warning, the woman screamed, "Stop the car!" The sudden shout nearly caused the driver to lose control. He ignored it. Again, she shouted, louder this time, "Stop!" The road ahead remained completely empty. No villages, no houses, no lights, only endless darkness stretching toward the horizon. The helper leaned closer to the driver. "Don't stop. I don't trust her." The driver nodded. He pressed harder on the accelerator, but the woman's voice became even more aggressive. "If you don't stop, you'll regret it." The words sent a chill through both men. Finally, unable to endure the pressure any longer, the driver slowly pulled the ambulance onto the roadside. Before either man could say anything, the rear doors opened from inside. The woman stepped out. The middle-aged man followed her. He quietly thanked the driver one last time. Then, both of them began walking away from the ambulance. The driver watched through the side mirror. They had taken only a few steps when they vanished. Not disappeared behind trees, not hidden by darkness. They simply ceased to exist. 1 second they were there, the next, nothing. The driver slammed on the brakes again. All three men jumped out. They searched both sides of the road. Flashlights swept across the fields. Nothing, no footprints, no voices, no human beings. only empty farmland stretching into the night. The helper slowly whispered, "Brother, who did we just give a ride to?" Neither of them had an answer, and deep inside, both of them knew. Their nightmare had only just begun. The driver wasted no time. He slammed the rear doors shut, jumped back into his seat, and accelerated as fast as the ambulance could go. Neither he nor the helper spoke. Neither dared to look into the back compartment. The silence inside the ambulance was far more terrifying than the chaos they had experienced only moments earlier. Several minutes later, the distant lights of the local police station finally appeared. For the first time that night, both men felt a sense of relief. "We're finally here," the helper whispered. The ambulance rolled into the station yard and came to a stop. Police officers immediately walked over to assist with receiving the body. The rear doors were unlocked. One officer pulled them open. The moment the doors swung wide, everyone standing nearby froze. Fresh blood, bright red blood, was slowly dripping from the right side of the teenage boy's neck. Drop after drop after drop. The white stretcher beneath him had become soaked with blood. The floor of the ambulance was stained crimson. One officer instinctively stepped backward. Another immediately called for the hospital staff. The helper stared in complete disbelief. This can't be possible. The boy had been declared dead hours ago. His post-mortem examination had already been completed. Every medical procedure had been finished. By all scientific understanding, a dead body should never begin bleeding fresh blood after so many hours. Yet, there it was, warm, bright, fresh. The doctors carefully examined the body once again. As they cleaned away the blood, something even stranger appeared. On the right side of the boy's neck, there was a perfectly round hole. It wasn't caused by a knife. It wasn't part of the autopsy incision. It looked almost as though something had been inserted, or removed, with extraordinary precision. One doctor leaned closer, another switched on a brighter examination light. The wound showed no signs of tearing, no damaged tissue, no jagged edges, only a smooth circular opening. It looked unnatural. One senior doctor quietly muttered, "It almost resembles a cavity left after something was extracted." No one answered, because no one wanted to say aloud what everyone was already thinking. The mysterious blue stone. Could that impossible object have been hidden there? Or had something removed it long before anyone noticed? The body was cleaned once again. Fresh burial clothes were placed over the teenager. The paperwork was completed. Finally, late that night, the funeral procession left for the cemetery. Only a small number of relatives, cemetery workers, and helpers accompanied the body. No one spoke very much. The events of the evening had drained every ounce of courage from them. The cemetery lay outside the town, surrounded by ancient trees and open fields. A cold wind drifted quietly between the graves. The burial began shortly after midnight. As prayers echoed through the darkness, one of the cemetery workers suddenly noticed someone sitting several meters away. A teenage boy, perhaps 16, maybe 17. His clothes were simple. His face looked strangely familiar. He sat alone beside an old grave with his head slightly lowered. At first, the worker assumed he must be a close friend of the deceased. After all, teenagers often struggled to express grief. Some cried, others remained silent. This boy simply sat there, softly humming a tune. The worker looked away, then glanced back again. The boy hadn't moved. He was still staring. Not at the funeral, not at the grieving family, only at him. A strange feeling settled inside the worker's chest. He quietly looked around. Nobody else seemed to notice the mysterious teenager. Not the imam, not the family, not the police officers. No one. The worker frowned. Was he imagining things? He rubbed his eyes. When he looked again, boy was still there, still humming, still staring directly into his eyes. An icy chill spread through his body, for reasons he couldn't explain. He suddenly wanted the burial to end as quickly as possible. Minutes later, the grave was filled. Prayers ended. People slowly began returning to the ambulance. The worker glanced toward the same spot one last time. The boy had disappeared without making a sound, without leaving a trace. No footprints, no movement, nothing. The cemetery had become empty once again, but deep inside, the worker knew whatever he had just seen wasn't human. The drive back should have been uneventful. The burial was over. The body had finally been laid to rest. Every logical explanation suggested that the nightmare had come to an end. But whatever had attached itself to that journey had no intention of letting them leave. The ambulance slowly pulled away from the cemetery and entered the lonely highway once again. For several minutes, nobody spoke. The driver concentrated on the road while the helper silently prayed under his breath. Neither of them wanted to remember the strange woman, the mysterious voices, or the impossible blood flowing from a dead body. Then, the helper suddenly grabbed the driver's arm. "Look." The driver raised his eyes. There, sitting beside the road, was the same teenage boy from the cemetery. His head was lowered. His lips moved slowly as though he were humming the very same melody. The driver blinked. The ambulance passed him. Neither man spoke. Several hundred meters later, the helper slowly looked ahead again. His entire body froze. The boy was there again, sitting beside the road. Exactly the same posture, exactly the same expression, exactly the same haunting smile. The driver felt his heartbeat explode inside his chest. That's impossible. We already passed him. Neither of them understood what they were seeing. The ambulance continued forward. Again, the boy appeared. Again, he silently watched them. Again, he hummed the same tune. The helper couldn't take his eyes off him. The driver glanced toward the roadside for only a second. That single second changed everything. Blinding headlights suddenly burst from the darkness. A massive truck sped toward them. "Look out!" the helper screamed. The driver jerked the steering wheel. Crash! A deafening explosion filled the night. Metal twisted, glass shattered. Everything disappeared into darkness. The driver slowly opened his eyes. He gasped for air. His entire body shook. He looked around. The helper was sitting beside him, completely unharmed. The ambulance was perfectly intact. No broken windshield, no damaged doors, no truck, nothing. It was as though the collision had never happened. The two men stared at each other in absolute horror. Had they imagined it? Was it some kind of hallucination? Neither of them could answer. Trying to convince themselves it was over, they continued driving. Only a few minutes later, the same boy appeared once again beside the road, still humming, still staring. The helper immediately shouted, "Don't look!" But it was too late. The driver instinctively turned his head. Again, the blinding headlights, again, the truck, again, the collision, again, darkness, and once more. They awakened inside an undamaged ambulance. The impossible cycle continued. No matter how many times they crashed, reality reset itself. Eventually, the terrified driver noticed a small roadside tea shop glowing beneath a single lantern. Without hesitation, he stopped the ambulance and both men ran toward the shop. The owner looked at them in confusion. "What's wrong?" The driver could barely breathe. "A huge tree. It fell across the road. We almost died." The shopkeeper stared at him. "What tree?" "I've been watching your ambulance from here. There was never any tree. You suddenly stopped your vehicle, jumped out, and ran straight toward my shop." The driver slowly turned around. The road behind them was empty, perfectly clear. No fallen tree, No truck, no accident, nothing. The driver and the helper spent the remainder of the night inside that tiny tea shop. Neither of them dared continue before sunrise. The next morning, the driver resigned from his job. He swore he would never drive another ambulance again. But even leaving the job couldn't free him. Every night, the same dream returned. An elderly man stood before him. His face was pale. His eyes were filled with desperation. Again and again, the old man repeated only one sentence: "Return it. Give it back." The dream continued for 2 endless weeks. Unable to endure the torment any longer, the former driver began searching for answers. His investigation eventually led him back to the hospital. There, he met the morgue attendant who had performed the boy's autopsy. Before either man spoke, both froze. Each immediately recognized the other, not from real life, but from their nightmares. The morgue attendant finally confessed everything. While performing the autopsy, he had discovered a strange blue stone hidden inside the dead boy's neck. Believing it to be valuable, he secretly stole it. The moment he touched it, voices begged him to return it. Ignoring every warning, he tried selling the stone to a jeweler. He received money, but the next morning, the money had vanished. The blue stone was back inside his drawer. He sold it again. Again, the stone returned. The jeweler later claimed the attendant himself had appeared during the night, demanded the stone back, threatened him, reclaimed it, and even returned most of the money. Security cameras showed nothing. No visitor, no evidence, only missing time. No matter how many times the stone was sold, it always found its way home. Only then did the two men finally understand. The voices, the apparitions, the impossible accidents, the endless nightmares. Everything had begun the moment the blue stone was taken from the dead. Some objects are more than ancient relics. Some are guardians of forgotten secrets, and some carry curses so powerful that death itself cannot contain them. Perhaps somewhere, locked away in an old drawer, hidden beneath forgotten earth, or resting inside another silent grave, the mysterious blue stone still waits, silent, patient, waiting for the next curious hand to pick it up. Because some mysteries are never meant to be solved, and some things should never be taken from the dead.